how are you? I hope you're well. Welcome. Today we're going to learn more about biology. The topic is transport in animals. Elimu Live is the show, and you're on KUTV. Be sure to like, subscribe, and even share. And also don't forget to comment. There's a number on your screen. So our main focus today will be internal structure of the heart, and we're also going to look at circulation in the heart. I hope you have somewhere to note down, because this will be a very interactive session. So the heart is an important structure in all animals, and the heart mainly assists in transport. Now, transport is the movement of a substance from one place to another. Now, a transport system in an organism is made up of three main parts. Transport system is made up of tubes. It's also made up of a pumping mechanism. And lastly, it is made up of a transport fluid. In this case, we are looking at the mammalian heart, the heart of a mammal. And so, the tubes, these are the blood vessels inside the mammals, and they include veins. They also include arteries and capillaries. Now, the pumping mechanism, which is our main focus, is the heart. The heart is the one that will help to transport the blood from one part of the body to another part. And the transport fluid in mammals is the blood. So this heart generally looks like this. This is the external structure. This is how it looks like on the outside. As you can see, there's a layer of fat. There's a layer of fat around the heart, and this one acts as a shock absorber. Now, the heart is our pumping mechanism, and it's connected to tubes, as you can see. So this blue one represents a tube, which is the main vein. The red one represents an artery, which is the main artery, and we're going to look in depth at them. We also have blood vessels that supply the heart with nutrients, and the main blood vessel that supplies the heart with nutrients is called the coronary artery. So up to there, I hope we're together. So the internal structure of the heart is also the anatomy of the heart. Anatomy is the scientific study of internal structures. So we are going to look at how this heart looks on the inside. So the inside of the heart is illustrated in this diagram, as you can see. So this is a simple diagrammatic expression of how the heart looks like. Now, on top, we have the tubes that connect to the heart. But before we go to the tubes and we name them, I want you to focus on these parts. So you can see there's this part 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are regions, also called chambers. So the mammalian heart is divided into 4 chambers. Now, the chambers are usually given names oppositely. What do I mean? That if I have to name these chambers, I have to cross my hands to be able to name them. If I face the board, my right is on my left. So I have to cross to be able to label. So this is the right side of the heart, and this is the left side of the heart. I hope we're moving together. So these chambers, we have 2 on the upper side and we have 2 on the lower side. The ones on the upper side are called atriums or auricles, and the ones on the lower side are called ventricles. So these are atria, and these are ventricles. So when it comes to labeling, you have to be specific. So this chamber on my right, the upper chamber on my right, is the right atrium. When it's one, we call it atrium. When there are many, we call them atria. Please note that, because in biology we insist if it's one, it's singular, you must write singular. If there are many, please ensure you're writing it in plural. So this is the right atrium because it's one, and this is the left atrium because it's one. Then the lower chambers are made up of the ventricles. On my side is the right ventricle, and on this other side is the left ventricle. So those are the four main chambers of the heart. These chambers, or these parts, are divided into two. So you can see a dark line that is running right in the middle of the heart. Now that dark line is called a septum. It is called a septum, and it is made up of muscles. So the septum is a structure inside the heart that separates the right side and the left side. Now before we move further, the heart deals with blood. As you have said, it's our transport fluid. Now the blood can either contain oxygen or lack oxygen. Now when blood contains oxygen, we call it oxygenated blood. When it contains oxygen, we call it oxygenated blood. The one that has oxygen is called oxygenated blood, and the one that lacks oxygen is called deoxygenated blood. It is the opposite. When it lacks oxygen, it is deoxygenated. So the reason why we have looked at this is so that we can know the role of the septum. Now the septum, it usually separates the right and left side of the heart to prevent oxygenated blood from mixing with deoxygenated blood. I will repeat. The septum usually is in the middle of the heart, and it separates the right and the left side of the heart to prevent oxygenated blood from mixing with deoxygenated blood. The main gases that are used, or the main gases that are transported in the mammalian system, are two: oxygen and carbon dioxide. So when blood has oxygen, it's oxygenated. When it lacks oxygen and has carbon dioxide, it is deoxygenated. Now the right side of the heart, it deals with deoxygenated blood. Meaning that the blood that flows in the right side of the heart does not have oxygen. But the left side of the heart, it deals with oxygenated blood. And this means that that blood is rich in oxygen. Now we continue looking at the internal structure of the heart. Now the heart is made up of muscles. And the heart is made up of a special kind of muscle called cardiac muscles. Cardiac muscles. Cardiac muscles. Now, the cardiac muscles have the ability to contract and relax without getting tired. Tired means that they do not get fatigued. And that's why the heart is able to pump every day, every night, without getting tired. Now, the muscles are distributed differently depending on the chambers. Now, these are the cardiac muscles. Highlighted in black, we have the cardiac muscles. But I want us to focus on the lower chambers, that is the ventricles. You will realize that the ventricles, they have thick walls which are made of these cardiac muscles than all the other parts. and we shall look at the reason why as we discuss circulation in the heart. Now, another part that I want us to focus on are structures that are just below these vessels. So we have this structure and this other structure. Now, those structures are called valves. The structures are called valves. Valves. And a valve is a structure that prevents the backflow of blood. I repeat, a valve is a structure that prevents the backflow of blood. So we usually have two sets on these vessels, and we usually have other valves that are found between the auricles or the atriums and the ventricles. So these are valves, these are also valves. We have the tubes that connect to the heart, and these tubes, number one, we have the vena cava. On the right side, we have the vena cava. After the vena cava, we have pulmonary artery, followed by the aorta, and lastly, the pulmonary vein. I will repeat. These are the tubes, or these are the vessels connected to the heart. We start on the right side with the vena cava. On the right side also, it's followed by pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery is followed by the aorta. And the last one towards the left is the pulmonary vein. I hope we are together. I really hope we are together. So coming back to the valves, we usually have two sets of valves. One set is found beneath the major arteries. Which are the major arteries? The major arteries are the pulmonary artery and also the aorta. Now, the valves that are found beneath the major arteries are called semilunar valves. Semilunar valves. You can just note it down that they are found beneath major arteries. And those arteries are two. That is the pulmonary artery, and the aorta. I hope we are together up to there. And I will still remind you that valves are structures that prevent blood from flowing back. Now, we usually have the second set of valves. So this is the first set. This is the first set, semilunar valves. Be sure to note the spellings. Ensure that you're asking questions. There's a number on your screen. Please let us interact, ask questions, contribute to this topic. We'd really appreciate. So the second set of valves is usually between the atria and the ventricles. So this is one set, and this is another one. They are between the atria and the ventricles. And these valves are usually called cuspid valves. So the second set of valves are cuspid valves. So cuspid valves also have another name, and this name is based on the fact that they are between the ventricles and the atria. So the cuspid valves are also called the atrioventricular valves. So you'll find some books use both names, and other books use one name. They can either use the cuspid valves or the atrioventricular valves. You can also note that these ones, they are found between the atria and the ventricles. Found between atria and ventricles. Now, I will still remind you that valves prevent backflow of blood. The cuspid valves have names depending on the side which they are placed. As we have said, we have the right side of the heart and we have the left side of the heart. So the cuspid valves that are on the right side of the heart are usually called tricuspid. They're usually called tricuspid. Tricuspid. They are on the right. The ones that are on the left are called bicuspid. 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 Left. So this one is a cuspid valve, and because it's on the right, it is tricuspid. This one is a cuspid valve, and because it's on the left, it's called bicuspid. I hope up to there we are together. I will still insist, as you write your notes, as you revise, as you read, note the spellings. Note the spellings. Ensure that you write the correct spellings so that you can get all the marks in an exam situation. So up to that point, we have exhausted the internal structure of the heart. And this is the one that is going to enable us, it's the one that is going to enable us get and understand the circulation in the heart. Please send your questions. Send your questions through the number on your screen. Please send your questions through the number on your screen. Be sure to share, subscribe, and also comment on our social media platforms. So I hope we are together up to this point. And now we are going to look at circulation in the heart. Circulation in the heart. What is to circulate? To circulate is to go round. It's to go round. So because you have seen blood is our transport fluid, how does it go round the body? That is what you're going to focus on. How is it pumped from this heart to the rest of the body? That is what you're going to focus on. Now, we're going to illustrate circulation in 4 simple boxes. We're going to illustrate circulation in 4 simple boxes. And the first box is going to represent our hearts. So this is where the blood will originate. The second box on the upper side is going to represent lungs. And the third box on the lower side will represent the body. So how does the blood go round? How does the blood go round? So from the heart, we see that the heart is the main structure that will pump all the blood. I remind you, oxygenated blood contains oxygen. Deoxygenated blood lacks oxygen. Now, after the cells have used oxygen, they usually give out carbon dioxide. So blood that is rich in carbon dioxide is referred to as deoxygenated blood. And this blood will originate from the body because the tissues have already taken the oxygen and they have given off carbon dioxide. So we'll have deoxygenated blood being represented by black. So the deoxygenated blood from the body enters to the heart. Deoxygenated blood from the body enters to the heart. So what will happen after this? The heart will now transport, or it will pump this deoxygenated blood to the lungs. What is the reason for this? So that the deoxygenated blood can be made oxygenated. In your lungs, we have a process called gaseous exchange. And gaseous exchange is the process that respiratory gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, pass across respiratory surfaces. So your lungs, they have alveoli or air sacs. These are the respiratory surfaces. So what happens is an exchange. Carbon dioxide is given out and oxygen is taken in. So this deoxygenated blood will be taken to the lungs so that it can be filled with oxygen. So this deoxygenated blood is transported from the heart to the lungs so that it can gain oxygen. Now, when it reaches the lungs, it will be oxygenated. We're going to use the blue shade to present oxygenated blood. So blood that is rich in oxygen is taken from the lungs back to the heart again. Are we together? The blood that is now rich in oxygen will be taken from the lungs back to the heart again. And the heart will now pump this oxygenated blood to the body. The oxygenated blood from the heart will be pumped to the body. So that is how circulation takes place. The blood is going round from the body to the heart, from the heart to the lungs, from the lungs back to the heart again, and from the heart to the body. As you can see, circulation is happening and blood is getting to the heart twice. So this phenomena is called double circulation. Double circulation. It is the process that blood passes through the heart twice for every complete circuit. Blood will pass through the heart the first time from the body, then it will also pass through the heart the second time from the lungs. So that is double circulation. Now we are going to relate circulation based on the chambers and based on the blood vessels. When blood is going round, which chamber does it enter? What vessel does it come out of? What vessel does it use to enter into the heart back again? So that is why we learned internal structure, so that we can be able to understand circulation. So I will use blue arrows or black arrows, sorry. I'll use black arrows to help you understand the circulation inside the heart. So the oxygenated blood from the body enters the heart through this vessel we are calling vena cava. So this is deoxygenated blood. From where? From the body. It enters the heart through the vena cava. And after entering the heart, the first place to land will be the right atrium. So to the vena cava, into the right atrium. The atrium and the ventricles, they work through contracting and relaxing. They work through contracting and relaxing. When they contract, they push the blood. When they relax, they receive the blood. I will repeat that. Atrium, ventricle, they work through contracting and relaxing. When they contract, they push the blood. When they relax, they receive the blood. So when the right atrium is receiving the blood, it is usually relaxed. And I'll use this balloon to illustrate how does blood get in. Assuming this is our vessel the upper part of this balloon is our vessel. So this is our vena cava. So what happens when the blood gets through the vena cava? The right atrium relaxes and it receives the blood. So that is relaxing so that blood can enter. That is relaxing so that blood can enter. Okay? I hope you're together. If you have any questions, please be free to ask. So after that, this blood will pass through the cuspid valve, and for this side, the tricuspid valve, and it will enter to the right ventricle. So this chamber, the blood will flow from the right atrium to the right ventricle. As we said, the right side of the heart deals with deoxygenated blood that does not contain oxygen. Now, from this point or from this chamber, the blood will flow. After the ventricle has been filled, it will contract. And contracting means that this blood will be pushed to another vessel. Contracting means that this blood will be pushed to another vessel. Now, the vessel that it will be pushed into is the pulmonary artery. And the pulmonary artery is the only artery in your body that carries deoxygenated blood. So if it's contracting, it means that if the blood has filled the ventricle, if it contracts, it will push it. And when it pushes it, it will enter to the pulmonary artery. Now, the pulmonary artery is the one that will take deoxygenated blood to the lungs. So this blood, the arrows are flowing in this direction from the right atrium to the right ventricle up into the pulmonary artery. And from here, the blood is being taken to the lungs. And in the lungs, this blood will be oxygenated. There will be an exchange. Carbon dioxide will be given out. Oxygen will be given in. So in the lungs, you have gaseous exchange. And the blood that will leave the lungs will now be rich in oxygen. It will contain a lot of oxygen. So this blood that is from the lungs will pass through a vessel that is called pulmonary vein. And pulmonary vein is towards the left side. So from the heart, the arrow goes to the pulmonary vein. Pulmonary vein is the only vein in the body that carries oxygenated blood. All other veins carry deoxygenated blood, apart from the pulmonary vein. So the pulmonary vein will channel the blood to the left atrium. So the arrows continue. This blood will enter into the left atrium, and this blood will now be directed to the left ventricle. So this blood will be pushed down to the left ventricle. I want us to be very keen on looking at the walls of the right ventricle and the left ventricle. As you can see, the right ventricle has thin walls, while the left ventricle, it has thick walls. And be very careful, observe that. These are the walls, the right ventricle, the left ventricle. The left ventricle has thick walls. And the reason why the left ventricle has thick walls is to generate enough pressure to pump blood to the whole body. Generate enough pressure to pump blood to the whole body. Now, when the left ventricle contracts, it pushes blood out of the heart through the aorta. It pushes blood out of the heart through the aorta. And now this blood, it contains oxygen. So this blood will be pushed to the body, and the cells will be able to utilize the oxygen. So that is how circulation in the heart takes place. And the valves, they prevent blood from flowing backwards. Up to that point, I hope you're understanding. If you have any questions, please send them through the number on your screen. So that is how circulation takes place. And I believe we have really met our objective of looking at the internal structure of the heart and also circulation in the heart. Now, questions can be set in various ways. Questions can be set in various ways in the examination. You can find short questions. This is especially in paper 1. So at the end of the day, after we learn, after we write notes, after we understand, we are usually tested. So exams are inevitable. And because of that, we have to expose ourselves to the various ways through which these questions are set in the examination. Now we have paper 1. Now paper 1 usually contains short questions, and you can be asked maybe to give the vessels that, an example of a question that can come in paper 1. So give the vessels that, so this is one question A, transport blood from the body to the heart, 1 mark. B, transport blood from lungs to heart. This is another 1 mark. So you can find such a question in paper 1. So number 1, always read the question. Don't be in a rush. Read, understand what the examiner really wants. So in the first segment, which blood vessel transports blood from the body to the heart? So from the body to the heart. So the blood vessel that does that is the vena cava. So make sure you're writing the whole word, vena cava. Vena cava. Please don't write vena and leave it that way. And also don't write cava and leave it that way. Should be vena cava. Then transports blood from the lungs to the heart. Transports blood from the lungs back to the heart again. This is the pulmonary vein. It is not just a vein. Please let us learn to give complete answers. You must write pulmonary vein. So pulmonary vein. This is an example of a short question that you can find in paper 1. So in paper 2 of biology consists of structured questions. Structured questions means that you have one question with a set that is following. For example, you can have a diagram. Most of the time it's a diagram. It's usually a diagram or a table illustration. So maybe you can have this diagram, and in the examination, be sure that they won't label this for you. So it's up to us to get where these parts are and what their names are. So in the examination, you can find that they are naming the chambers. They can name, for example, the right atrium X, the right ventricle Y, left ventricle Z. They can also label, they can also point on the valves. They can also point on these blood vessels. So in such a case, you're supposed to study the diagram carefully. I insist, study the diagram carefully. Diagrams are not always the same. So this is a simplified diagram. Next time, you might not find this. You might find a slightly twisted diagram. So please study the diagram before you answer the twisted questions or before you answer the structured questions. So sometimes you can be asked to draw arrows showing circulation of blood, a very common question. So they just give you the skeleton that is the internal structure of the heart with no labels, no arrows, just the structure, and you're asked to draw arrows that are showing how the blood flows. So when you're drawing these arrows, I always advise students, please let us go into the exam rooms with pencils and a rubber, because we are only human, we can make mistakes. So ensure you have a sharp pencil and it should be clear. If you're told to draw the arrows, you will start from the right side of the heart that you've been given, and you can draw the first arrow in the space that is showing vena cava, the second arrow in the right atrium, the third arrow in the right ventricle, the fourth arrow going upwards towards the pulmonary artery. Then you can also write lungs if it is not indicated, maybe at the top of the question. And from the lungs, you draw an arrow that is leading to the left side of the heart into the pulmonary vein. And you can also draw arrows that are showing the blood entering to the left atrium, finally to the left ventricle, and upwards out towards the aorta and to the rest of the body. So in such a question that is requiring you to draw arrows, you can earn yourself between 3 to 4 marks. So make sure that you're not leaving out the arrows. Make sure that you're not drawing faint arrows. Please do not make the examiner strain to look at your diagrams, to look at your answers. You just be on the safe side. Now, another way this question can be set is through essays. And it is through these essays I'm going to give an assignment. So an essay is a continuous writing according to the topic, or usually dealing with the subject that you have been told to discuss about. For example, you can be asked, number 1, to describe circulation in the heart. Describe circulation in the heart. Then you can have 16 marks for this. 16 marks. Another essay question that you can be given discuss the adaptations of the mammalian heart, which is a previously tested KCSE question. Mammalian heart to its function. Discuss the adaptations of the mammalian heart to its functions. There are many functions. So that will give you 20 marks. So I'm only going to highlight what is expected, and then you're going to do this as an assignment. So describe circulation in the heart. When you're describing circulation, number 1, ensure that you are relating the blood vessels. You're also relating the chambers. You must mention the blood vessels and the chambers. Now the second one, discuss the adaptations of the heart, mammalian heart, to its functions, 20 marks. Adaptation of mammalian heart to its function, 20 marks. So in this part, an adaptation is a special feature. So you've just been asked, what is special about the heart that helps it to carry out its function? So in this, it's a very open, wide, and good question, a question where you can earn the 20 marks because you can talk about the vessels. The heart contains vena cava. What does vena cava do? Don't leave it at that. Remember, you've been asked to discuss. So it contains vena cava, and the work of the vena cava is to transport deoxygenated blood from the body to the heart. So every time you give an adaptation, you must relate it to the functions. Always remember to relate it to the functions. So the moment you only give it has vena cava, you only score 1 mark, or sometimes according to the marking scheme, no mark. So ensure you're writing your adaptations, giving the explanation or relating to the functions. So please write these 2 questions down as assignment, and I hope you're continuing to send your questions. Please let us interact. It's a very interesting topic. It's a topic that is brought in the exams a lot of time. I hope you have understood, and I hope that it won't give you trouble anymore. And for those who had understood, I hope the content is well set in your heads. So I'd like to say hi to my mom and my dad, also my brother and sister who are watching the show. They've been very supportive, and I appreciate. Thank you so much for viewing us. Continue tuning in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Goodbye.